Welcome into episode 1 of our 2022 positional review. Today, we're starting with quarterback at number 8, Kirk Cousins. We'll
Makes
break
sense.
down his performance this season right after this. Unfortunately, Minnesota Vikings season ended sooner than we wanted it to, so we're already into our positional review from last season. Now, we did this last year. Basically, how we're going to do this, we're going to go position by position in these episodes. We're starting at quarterback, just kind of talk about their season, give their stats, give a breakdown, some opinions, maybe talk about what our thoughts are about them going into this upcoming season. There's going to be a lot to talk about, not at quarterback, but definitely we'll get into the other positions. But you got to start with the leader of the team. You got to start with it. And of course, that leads us into starting with number 8, Kirk Chains after this season, quarterback Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins,
Let's get right into those stats and let's talk about Kirk Cousins' season.
Yeah. Before we do that, though, I want to thank everybody for watching GG Sports Podcast Minnesota Vikings, where we endure heartbreak but always bleed purple, just like we did again this year. One day we'll get it. But again, I want to thank everyone watching. Please subscribe, hit the bell, get notifications for our videos. On all our live streams, we've been giving away rookie cards, Viking rookie cards, mostly JJ rookie cards. And again, we're going to do that on our live stream this Monday at 6 p.m. Central. So join us there for your chance to win on this and just to come hang out and, kind of look into the Vikings news. There's a lot of stuff going on with the offseason pretty much beginning for us. So
it's weird. I was talking to people at work today how the offseason actually kind of brings more news and content than the regular season does. It's kind of crazy, but
I know you're always wondering like who's gonna. Sure. Last year was crazy. It was crazy with all this getting a GM, the head coach. Like there was so much going on, and you didn't know what was gonna happen 100% sure with Kirk Cousins yet. All that stuff. Speaking of that guy, this year there's no question what's gonna happen with him.
100%. On Kirk Cousins' upcoming season, especially with that cap number. But anyway, let's talk about the stats. Obviously, as you can see here, 65% completion percentage, 4,547 yards, equaled out to 267 per game, 29 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, a 50 QBR, 79.3 PFF grade, which ranks 9th in the NFL. By all accounts, I mean, you look at the numbers and you say, yeah, he's had better numbers with yardage. Well, he's only had a couple better seasons than that.
Yardage was good. Like if you compare this to last year, let's say, his completion percentage was around 66%. His yards were around 4,200. His touchdowns were 33. His interceptions has doubled. There were 7 last year. His QBR was a little up. His PFF grade was a little higher. Last year, his PFF grade was actually 88, but it was good for 14th. So you can just tell, the league as a whole kind of came down in all these areas. But
for sure.
I know we talked about it right before popping on here about the interceptions. Was we kind of felt going into this season that, we're cool with some interceptions from Kirk Cousins because we want him to take these chances, especially when you got a guy like Justin Jefferson on your team. And I do feel like this year was he did take more of those chances. The offense was more open for him to do that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously there were the couple interceptions that you're kind of just like, oh man, what are you doing? I know he had the one against Buffalo. I know he had a couple others, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. And you look at that, it would have been cool to see him get 30 touchdowns again. But the biggest thing with these numbers, and it has been, I guess up until last year, it was an issue with him where a lot of people thought like, the garbage time, stat stuffing, a lot of the yardage, and that came from when his teams were losing. And again, I got to say that when his teams were losing late in games, but these last year and this year, you really notice it. A lot of these stats come in the fourth quarter. I mean, fourth quarter come 8 as the Kirk Cousins number 8. Fourth quarter comebacks this season. I believe that tied a league record or was a league record.
I think it was a league record, including the greatest comeback in NFL history.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, something crazy like that. And that's the thing. So none of these, I wouldn't say he had any garbage time stats this year. A lot of these were in gotta have it situations. And I think that's why, I mean, there's still a lot of the fan base, especially after the last pass against the Giants, is that there's our guy. He just can't get it done. But man, he played phenomenal in that game against the Giants. And all year with a shoddy offensive line, getting hit over and over again, took some absolute shots and just stood in there and in pressure situations came through when he needed to. So, I mean, stats won't show it, but I think a lot of people are in agreement that, even the staunchest Kirk Cousins haters need to say this was probably his best season yet. And I don't think there's any way to discredit that.
Yeah, I wouldn't consider myself a Kirk hater by any means, but coming into this season, like I wasn't so sure about well, I didn't care about the stats as much as I cared about him winning at the end of games and these comeback victories and all that stuff. And that's something I saw hit through. Like that's something that I saw from him all through this season, and that impressed me way more than any of these stats or even his stats from the past. That's what I wanted to see from Kirk Cousins. That's something I didn't know he was able to do, and was my biggest concern. And he definitely proved me wrong. I was hoping he was. I always hope that this is a year Kirk figures it out. This is a year Kirk figures out. But he did prove me wrong. He proved a lot of his haters wrong with that. Yes, it came down to that last throw, which does, in my head, for someone that's kind of on the other side, it is like, man, Kirk, I wish you would have just like threw an interception or threw the ball over Justin Jefferson's head or something on that last play. As long as it was past the first down line, then I would have been like, all right, like, what are you going to do? But either way, he had a fantastic season, and you can't argue with 8 comeback victories
for sure
in a season and breaking records that way. That was a complete opposite of what I was expecting of Kirk Cousins coming into this season. So,
yeah. And honestly, aside from winning that game, there was no winning. I got to put it that way for Kirk. The pass short of the sticks, it was a completion, right? Perfect. It was a completion, didn't get you where you wanted to go. Obviously, game over after that, gets hate for it. If he throws an interception, yeah, all the fans are like, I would rather him chuck it to JJ and throw a pick. If he throws an interception, he's getting hate for making that decision. If he throws an incomplete pass past the sticks, it's like, why didn't you find a better option? The only way he doesn't get any hate after that play is if he completes the pass and keeps driving down the field. It just sucks that it had to be behind the sticks, because that is kind of
that's like
what the people will point at when they're trying to criticize how he plays.
Right.
And with not the whole not taking chances thing and not wanting to ruin his stats, but I don't know, but you listen to his explanation. I really think he thought it was the best option. And, obviously fans will say what fans want to say, but I mean,
yeah,
it was a no-win situation for the guy, unless and it's kind of unfortunate, but maybe a defense should have allowed Daniel Jones to throw for 300 yards against us and however many touchdowns.
That game wasn't his fault at all.
Right.
It wasn't his fault. I do think, he was, I think the only, like, the interception, if it's past the first down, I think with that stuff is the pressure's there. So it's like he had no choice but to throw it up. So I think it is even like, it makes more sense to me that he had no choice but to throw it up somewhere as long as it's past the first down. That makes more sense to me than dump it off to someone and you kind of can't even get a chance.
Also, it was a terrible play call. Like,
and there shouldn't even have been a guy short on that.
Right. And a big reason, not to mention too, and KJ's route should have been at the first down, cut over. And not to mention the drive before that, starting it off with 2 screens, and it's inexcusable play calling in my opinion.
It should not have came down to that.
No, it should not have. It should not have. I mean, then you saw what happened against the Eagles with the Giants. So it's like, but Daniel Jones be thanking the Vikings defense. They made him a lot of money. But anyway, Kirk Cousins, obviously, as you mentioned, going into next season, he's the unquestioned guy. Again, it's in the minds of the staunchest Kirk Cousins supporters, saying that you need to look towards the future is somehow an insult to the way Kirk Cousins is playing, which I don't think that's true whatsoever.
No.
Obviously, going into the season, he got a 36.2 cap number. Obviously, you're not moving on from that. You're not going to cut him or maybe trade him if someone want him, but that's not. You're going into next season with Kirk Cousins as your starting quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
It should not dissuade the Vikings from looking towards the future, though. If they can find an option to bring in and start sculpting behind Kirk Cousins, I don't think Kirk should see that as an insult to the way he's playing. Because especially if they don't, if they toss another year on his contract, I'm fine with that.
Mm-hmm,
but I still don't think it should dissuade them from finding the guy. Because then you have a guy that can sit on the bench for 2 years. Kirk Cousins isn't going to play bad enough to where the fans are calling for him to be benched. It's never happened. So
no, it's not.
So I mean, he unquestioned started going into next year, but it should not stop the team from looking towards the future.
No, I don't think you should ever stop doing that. Kirk Cousins is 35. Obviously, quarterbacks are sticking around for a while now, but he's still over 35. And I do think, like, if we get a young quarterback, I do think Kirk's a good guy to learn behind, especially if he's willing to do that, which Kirk definitely comes off as a guy that would do that. I don't know. He kind of comes. I don't know, behind closed doors. He's a nice guy. He seems like a nice guy.
But I don't know.
Like, you think it'd be like an Aaron Rodgers thing?
Maybe.
Or
Maybe.
like,
I mean, I know that was I don't know. That was a thinking a while
I
back.
can't
He didn't
imagine
want
him.
like a legit backup behind him, so he didn't have to be looking over his shoulder. But I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe now
maybe
that
it
he's
is
a little
like
bit
that.
older, maybe he realizes that. Well, shoot, if these guys move on from me next year, I'm going to make more money somewhere else probably. So
I mean, if you have your 2 years extension on your contract, you're going to be 37 after that. I don't know. At that point, I just feel. I mean,
yeah,
maybe in his head, from a fan standpoint, I'm like, I need a younger quarterback to come in once you're done here.
right,
I
yeah,
can't rely on a 37-year-old quarterback who you don't know for sure is going to be able to play at
yeah.
even his level, because he's not. I like Kirk Cousins, but he's not Tom Brady. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not these guys who get old and
Mhm.
continue to play at
Right.
a super high level, because he's
Yeah.
never even played at their level.
But I think, yeah, no question goes into next season as a starter. But if you can find your guy, do it. Maybe Trey Lance, I'd be fine with it.
I'll take it.
This team does have another quarterback on the roster, and that is
This
Nick.
is the real carousel.
Yeah, right. Nick Mullins. I don't know if he's under contract after this season. I don't think he is. But anyway, this season, got in a couple games, 84 completion percentage, 224 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, mainly in that Bears game. Might have been only in that Bears game, actually, or I think he might have played after a blowout or something. 56 QBR, 69, nice PFF grade. Solid backup. Nope, he's gonna be a commodity in the offseason. Everybody's looking for a solid backup quarterback. When he needs to step in and start, he can do just fine. He's got a good enough arm for it. So good season by Nick Mullins. Yeah, he's a great number 2 quarterback, and I think you can make a career off being a good number 2 quarterback.
Right. We didn't get to see a ton of him, but I definitely feel a lot better. We've seen him obviously prior to being a Viking, and I feel better having him in there than a Seminin or who else have we had recently?
Sean Hill, or not Sean Hill. He
We
played
did
like
have
Sean
him,
Hill though.
but
Sean
right.
Mannion.
Sean
Mannion.
Mannion. Yeah, Sean Mannion, Trevor Siemian.
God, those were the days.
Right. So I feel better about that. So I mean, the question comes down, like, would you feel comfortable with having Nick Mullins come back as your number 2 quarterback?
Yeah.
Yes. The answer is yes, for me.
For sure. But anyway, that'll do it for our review of the quarterback position, mainly Kirk Cousins. Let us know your thoughts on Kirk Cousins' season down in the comment section, and we'll see you guys next time on the GG Sports Podcast.
Skol Vikes.